My son was born perfect in every way. Beautiful, brown-eyed, screaming. His pink fingers were so soft and small. I loved the way they played across my palm. I loved the way he gurgled when I tickled his little belly. I loved him from the moment the doctor put him in my hands. I've never stopped loving him since, but sometimes a mother's love is warped by time and circumstance, twisting and bending to fit what it has to. Sometimes love is a poison, one that festers in our minds, driving us to do things we never imagined ourselves capable of. The things I've done for love, they hurt to just think about. But like any poison, the best treatment is to simply spew it out. Expunge it from your system in so many words. Please don't judge me. Jack, my little boy, was born with FOP. It's a horrifying disease to watch, and even more horrifying to live. Essentially, the body responds to any physical trauma by growing bone in the infected area. It's impossible to avoid getting bumped and bruised in everyday life, and over the course of a lifetime, victims become solid bone, their skeletons freezing up under the weight of 100 tiny growths. The thing is, you don't know if they have it until it's too late, until that first bone freezes up for the rest of their life. Jack fell onto his hip while playing soccer on the street. It took a few days for the stiffness to start to show, but only a few days after that, and he couldn't bend it at all. His hip swelled with some hard growth, and every time he tried to run, he'd collapse in agony, something cracking and snapping deep inside of him. The doctors couldn't help. There's no cure for it, only the long and slow torture of living paralyzed. He was a fighter, though. He decided for himself that he wouldn't let it stop him from living a normal life. I watched in horror as he charged into middle school, high school, trying his damnedest to live a normal life. By some miracle, some stroke of luck, he never really got injured. He even got into college for medicine. He decided that if no one could cure him, he'd cure himself. My son was amazing. It brought tears to my eyes to remember what he was like. He hurt himself again just before college this year. It was some dumb thing, some graduation ritual, where all the students dive-bombed into a local water hole. He thought that he'd survive, no harm done. I didn't even know it had happened until I found him curled up like a fetus under his blanket 2 days later. I'd just gotten home from work when I heard his voice whimpering from his room. Mom, is that you? Help. Help me, please. I can't move. I can't see anything. It hurts, Mom. I can't move. I nearly vomited when I took the sheets off. His shoulders were abnormally wide. The skin stretched taut across his back. His spine stuck out of his skin. Tiny tears where white tips poked out of his flesh. Spurs stuck out of his elbows, keeping his arms fixed against his knees as they tugged up against his body. The bones in his feet had fused together into a club, and worst of all was his face. His skull had swollen up to engulf every feature, turning his head into an indistinguishable lump. He wasn't my little boy anymore. He was a monster. But then I looked at him and recognized those familiar hazel eyes, shiny with tears. He was still my little boy after all. I called his dad over, asked him to help me move Jack to somewhere more comfortable. We had to make this work. I loved Jack too much to just give up. He never got to go to college after all. I took a couple months off of work to take care of him. For a while, I kept him in his room, dragged in a couch so he could sit up as best he could and watch TV from the crack between his knees. Then my husband got the basement set up so he could stay in there, have more space to himself. I don't think Jack cared anymore, though. He was a living corpse, perpetually in agony as his skin stretched to the point of ripping. Life was hell to him. I had to help him. It hit me one night when he'd moaned about not being able to see anything. I could help him. I had to do it. I had to. But that didn't stop me from crying the whole night. My mind racked with guilt. The next morning over breakfast, I told my husband my plan. I'm going to amputate his legs. He spat his coffee out. What? Are you insane? Why the hell would you do that? He wants to see, Bob. The boy is sick of staring at his knees. He can't even use his legs anymore. It makes sense, right? The doctor's never going to do it for us, Mary, and even if they did, you know as well as I do that we cannot afford it. I know. I fucking know. I think we have to do it ourselves. No, 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 no. I am not cutting off my little boy's legs. No way. Can you stop talking about this? Fine. I paused for a second, then spoke up again. I'll do it myself if you won't help. Coward, I spat. He slammed his mug against the table and stormed off. I cursed at him silently as he left me to deal with Jack for another torturous day. It was a Sunday when I cut his legs off. I carried him myself all the way to his bedroom, strapped him down to his bed with some ropes. The whole time he was muttering deliriously, lost in his own pain. I didn't have any anesthetic, anything to lessen the pain. All I had was a hacksaw and a lot of determination. I put the jacket edge to the back of his thigh and started running it back and forth. The flesh split easy enough, rough flops of skin slipping over the side of the blade. Then I hit bone, and he started to scream, his voice already raw from months of perpetual agony. Sawing away at it, it took me a full hour before I made it through. By the end of it, he and I were both sweating and panting. Then I started on his other leg, my arm still burning from the exertion. Love gives us power in the strangest ways. I buried his legs in the garden, under the apple tree. Bloody sheets I burned, any trace of what had happened curling, blackening, drifting away with the ashes. He spent the rest of the week comatose, head lolling as he drifted in and out of a fever dream. My husband left the day he saw Jack, limbless and lost in his mind. Just packed a suitcase and vanished. Jack's never really recovered from the amputation, but at least in his dreams he doesn't seem to be in so much pain anymore. Perhaps in his mind, he's healthy and free. But the Jack I know is a torso, flailing around on a couch in my basement. The Jack I know defecates himself because he cannot move. The Jack I know is a monster, but he's my little boy and I love him. Love does strange things to a person. Love makes us all monsters.